You won 3 out of the 4 matches with Eric. Chemistry didn't seem to be an issue. Big question coming into the weekend. When he went like this and you went like this, and they said that you called the ball in, did you think of going like this to Eric at all again? Or
I was about to be like, hey man, you're number one for that call. No.
If you saw the St. Louis Shock playing at MLP last weekend, you probably noticed those sleek new uniforms they're wearing. That's from a company called Move, and they're the official uniform partner of the Shock and the sponsor of today's video. Move is a performance apparel brand started by fashion industry vets from Ralph Lauren and Levi's, so they're bringing some legit design cred to the pickleball world. That black and blue jersey you saw the Shock wearing is from their latest line. It has a super lightweight, moisture-wicking fabric and bonded seams, which basically means you're getting no chafing while you're playing on the court. And you look pretty good doing it. So if you're looking to step up your pickleball fit this summer, then head to movebrand.com and use code THEDINK to get 20% off site-wide.
Ryan, welcome to the Pickle Pod. We've never had you on before, have we?
You've never invited me. I'm honored to be here with you, Zane.
Yeah, well, stoked to have you as well. Are you in Boston right now, or where are you?
I am on my way up there.
Okay.
I'm about to jump on a flight and head north. So, yeah, we'll see
very
how it
cool.
goes.
So, for those of you guys who don't know, Ryan is the one of the owners of the Orlando Squeeze. Also owns a bunch of other sports teams, Orlando Magic, the Solar Bears, which I had a great time going to a few years ago, and several others. But we are going to chat about just the Orlando Squeeze involvement in the kickoff of Major League Pickleball, and just high level. How do you feel like MLP went this weekend?
Yeah, no. Overall, I thought it was a great event. The city showed up and we had a great turnout. It's great to have MLP back. I've certainly missed it, and it's such a fun format. So it's good to be back out there competing and seeing a lot of familiar faces. So that makes it a lot of fun. But overall, feel really good about where we landed. I think there are some areas that we could improve on for next time we host, certainly. But we wanted to try a few new things here, push the envelope a little bit, and bring some of our experience on the Magic side, Solar Bears, Osceola Magic, all these different platforms that we're able to engage with, bring some of that to the Orlando event.
Yeah, definitely. So one of those things to improve on is that the court color or what? Because that's the first thing that people turned on and saw
It's fair.
was the orange court.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the idea, and I'll credit to my team, Jeff and Amin and Olivia and everybody who worked on this so hard. It was ultimately our decision. We checked in with the league and feedback was fine across the board. I don't think we fully realized just how bright the colors would come out in the sun. And so, didn't fully take that into account. But I think the thought process on it of making it feel like a squeeze home match is the right one. And I hope others do go in that direction with theirs. I think moving forward, we'd probably tone it down a shade or two to make it a little bit better for on TV and for, any of that. I know that there's concerns about losing the ball on the paint and things like that. And all fair. I mean, obviously we want to make it a great playing experience for players. But I do think this is where the league just has to be going, is embracing more of the team look and feel and running with it from there.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to defend you on that one. I played, now, look, I didn't watch a tremendous amount, so
Yep.
any concerns about visibility on stream, from what I understand, it was a little bit worse day one compared to
Yep.
fixing some stuff over the next couple of days. There are complaints out there. I didn't have any visibility issues with the court. Maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe my eyes are just so
You're just used to the squeeze orange. You're just used to the squeeze orange.
Exactly. Thank goodness we didn't have Travis playing this weekend, because he would have been complaining about that.
We did talk about that. We did talk about it.
But you mentioned to me, this does feel like the very first time we've actually had some semblance of a home match. Even last year, the last event was about 6 months ago in Orlando. You guys the Squeeze weren't playing, but at the same time, it didn't feel like an Orlando Squeeze event. This time, it felt like a home match. It felt like a home Orlando Squeeze event. What's like, were you guys enabled to do more this year, or how did we have such a stark contrast in feel over just two events?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it helps when we're playing. Certainly more buy-in from the team in terms of engaging around the product. A lot of credit to MLP and the UPA leadership around embracing this home team approach. They kind of really opened it up to us from a creative standpoint, and we took a lot of things and ran with it. You know, Obviously the court color built out a more robust merchandise shop within Pickleball Central there, so we could really feature all of the various Squeeze products. They're all down to concessions that had a lot of citrus tie-in. So we tried to be thoughtful about every aspect of it from a fan experience standpoint. I think we hit a lot of it, on the money. But like I said, room for improvement in some areas. But ultimately, it came down to MLP leadership saying, we want these to feel like your own matches. And so we took that and ran with it.
Sure. Well, it sounds like the attention to the, is that Hayden?
Oh man.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Well,
Yeah.
It seems like the attention to detail paid off. It was the second highest MLP event in attendance, behind what my assumption is the New York City event last year.
Yeah, I believe it was New York.
Interesting. So yeah, it, like I said, it felt like a home match. When we talk a lot about the forward facing changes to Major League Pickleball, but are you willing to go into some of these behind the scenes sort of changes from the league to the ownership group, like enabling you guys to do more around building out stands, concessions, whatever that it might be?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously with this season, just having an actual season that we knew was going to happen, and we knew, you know, guardrails around time frame and things like that was helpful to allow us to plan accordingly. As far as just kind of the league inner workings, it really just came down to we simply had to, we went through an RFP process. Obviously, the USTA is a really great partner of ours and a great facility to host. So we knew right off the jump that we wanted to be at the USTA. They had the capacity for it. They have the pedigree to be able to host an event like this, and so we jumped in with them immediately. So through that RFP process, it was fairly simple, but ultimately it came down to teams taking on more from a revenue risk standpoint. So we had to fund court build outs, things like that, which is all great, totally understandable. And we had more opportunity to go and sell partnerships, take a percentage of ticket sales, things like that. So it was a risk reward. Ultimately, I think we did well, and it really gave us an opportunity, like I said, and like you've touched on, to put our own spin on things so that as we move into future iterations of this event and similars like it, we're able to show potential partners and fans, this is how we approach things. This is our look and feel. These are our numbers that we're drawing from, and be able to go and sell accordingly.
Mhm. For sure. I mean, it's decentralizing the events to people and their local markets, right?
Yep.
You're going to know the Orlando market a million times better than anybody at corporate MLP, and that's going to be the case in every. Columbus is going to be able to do that in Columbus. St. Louis will do that in St. Louis. So it makes a ton of sense, and it sounds like you were able to get some local radio coverage, some TV on-site coverage, a bunch of local PR stuff as well, and
Yep.
of course the pretty cool Magic players and Squeeze players exhibition. Can you tell us a little bit about that stuff?
Yeah, we had great local coverage across the board. So again, being able to host an event here locally, we can tap into a variety of media networks that are curious about pickleball. Not a ton of events come through Orlando regularly, so we can kind of bring them out, show them the game, and they can bring that to their audience, and hopefully we're building more fans of the game because of that. As far as distribution, we were really excited to have FanDuel Sports, who's the broadcast partner for the Magic, and are now carrying a number of squeeze matches throughout the course of the season. We brought them on board, and again, it's just bringing new eyeballs to this sport, and having distribution like that. There is a snowball effect associated with it. As soon as one FanDuel market starts carrying things like this, other FanDuel markets are going to start making the calls into the league and saying, what can we do to get this programming, especially over the summer months. There's just not that many professional sports going on. Baseball, we're certainly up against, but otherwise, there's not much else. So if we can give really compelling live programming to broadcast partners like that, I think that's a really great way forward. Yeah, I mean, and again, just being able to get folks out and touching and feeling the product, because I fell in love with MLP the moment I watched it. It is a compelling product, and so and it's hard. I think the traditional stigma around pickleball as being kind of slow and boring to watch, and a backyard game, does not ring true with MLP. And so being able to show folks this is a true professional sport, we approach it with a professionalism across the board, from uniforms to play on the court to the fan experience. Be able to showcase that, I think, is pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, you guys did a phenomenal job. How does MLP go to, since the beginning, I'll back up. You guys have been one of the most invested ownership groups. And, the elephant in the room is that there are some ownership groups that are more invested than others. Like, how, can MLP feel comfortable going to one of these ownership areas that might not be invested as, say, the squeeze?
Yeah, I think everybody who's involved wants to see this thing continue to grow. Everybody's going to take their own approach, their own potential budgetary constraints in mind. But I think ultimately, the more we can put our own unique team and market spin on things, you're gonna introduce the sport to new eyeballs, new people, new fans. And so I think there's certainly a risk associated, but I have confidence in the ability of the league leadership, from Connor to Samin to Zach at kind of more of the event operation folks, to put together a compelling product that meets the standards that we're all expecting. So I feel good about bringing that forward. Certainly a risk associated, and there may be a few other things that we tweak moving forward. But I think giving them the opportunity to run with these events is a good direction.
Yeah, I got you. I think overall the benefits far outweigh the risks. I got two more questions for you. One of them super important. Are you a semi-pro fan? The Will Ferrell movie?
Yes, I am. It's a
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah, of course. Did you derive your uniforms from the Flint Tropics or what?
They were not, no. Although they do have a Flint Tropic feel to them. That's fair.
They really do. I like it.
I think they came out pretty well this year. As I'm sure you can imagine, orange is not the easiest color to run with from a more traditional product run standpoint for brands. We got lucky the first year finding, when you played for us, finding a color with Lululemon that worked really well. That was pure luck. And so finding a consistent run of that color, really difficult. And then if you make a trade, in the back of your head, you're like, oh, do I have the sizes that I need to actually outfit this player? So we decided to go away from that. We're working with a company called BSN, who's more known for kind of high school and some smaller collegiate programs, but full sublimation on jerseys. So we have a lot more control over the color, the look and feel. So the creative team ran with them and had a lot of fun designing them. But overall, feel good about where they landed.
Yeah, I really like them. I feel like some headbands and tube socks would complete the look.
Well,
but I think they looked.
We'll send some your way. I'm sure the Fives would appreciate that.
Perfect. And then the last question: Are your boys going to take it in Boston tonight?
It's going to be a dogfight. I'm hoping we catch them sleeping a little bit. Lull them into a little false sense of security. 3-1. We'll see. It's going to be tough. They're the defending champions and ultimately are an incredibly talented team. So I think we'll be ready to fight. Our team doesn't quit. They back against the wall. They're going to fight tooth and nail for it and go out and see what we can do. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, hey, at least you don't have any of them signing a deal like Trae Young, because clearly he just wanted to get his offseason started and play some pickleball with his new PaddleTech paddles.
I did see that he came out with a signature paddle. Interesting. I didn't know he was that big of a player. I knew he was invested in the Atlanta team, but I didn't realize he was actually playing actively himself. So good for him.
Yeah, no, it was funny. The day after that came out, he got himself kicked out of the first playoff game at the end of it, which was entertaining.
That was an exciting game against the Hawks.
Yeah. So, well, Ryan, appreciate you coming on. Thanks for putting on a great first event in Orlando. I think there were a lot of people really with question marks around MLP in general heading into this event, and so I can't think of a better way to answer those questions than you guys did. So you heard it here first with Ryan and I. MLP is back.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words. I mean, we tried to put our best foot forward and want to represent the league in a really positive way. So I think we did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Zane. Appreciate it.
All right, Christian, welcome back to the Pickle Pod, like second or third time here. Where are you at?
Right. I feel like I was just here. Currently, I'm in Naples, Florida. Leigh Waters asked me to come coach her. Took a little bit of convincing, but I have Eric Onsens and Tina going to come down for a day, probably, and I'll get some training in. So it'll be worth it and good fun. I was able to meet a lot of cool people today at the PaddleTech tent there, and there's a lot of people. Saw Agassi. So a lot of people are lining up to meet him. So cool event. I don't know if I can say that as a signed PPA tour player, but cool event, and I think it's good for the sport to have some top players like Agassi playing an event.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I haven't gotten fined from the PPA, I feel like you can say whatever the hell you want.
Agreed.
Yeah. So you said one of the reasons I texted you when I saw this. You said, "How do we feel about using normal scoring instead of rally scoring for MLP? I have my thoughts, but I'll hold them till the end of the event." All right, it's the end of the event. What are you thinking, Christian?
Yeah. So after the first day, I was not for traditional scoring. I wasn't a huge fan because my first match, Eric and I won 11-2. And then my second match, Eden and I lost 11-1. Both matches were about like 9 minutes long and just like maybe even less, just super quick. And I was like, there were a lot of side outs, but we weren't getting any points on both matches. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But what I've realized as the event went on, and this is why I didn't put out a statement right away, is it maximizes the extremes. So the close matches are much longer and much closer, and the quick matches are much shorter. So I think I think it's a decent balance. And then I was talking to someone, and they were like, I was talking to Samin, the commissioner of MLP, and trying to get his thoughts on the whole scoring. And he was like, there's like 60,000, 100,000 pickleball players currently that follow pickleball, and those people are going to be the ones that are maybe a little bit more upset or not liking the change from rally scoring to traditional. But he's like, there's 20 million pickleball players in the States, and those are the people that are going to be much more interested in traditional scoring, as it keeps everything the same. So he was telling me it's not really for the people that are currently in pickleball, but it's more for the people that are going to get into pickleball. And when he explained that to me, it made a lot of sense. And I was like, I can't really argue that. So I think I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming around to it more having played one event. Like we had Ben from Real Claire Stats on just before this, and he said the bad matches are lopsided, the good matches are long, which is probably what you want. And I said nobody wants to watch 25 points of the Flash destroying the Hustlers, right? Like you want 25 points, you want more of the good matches, you want less of the bad ones, probably. So overall better than expected from my end.
Christian, I had a question for you. So I'm watching a lot this weekend, obviously, and I noticed something you're doing. Probably you're the only one doing it, and I wanted to ask you about it. I actually put out a tweet about it. You're running on the court, doing some little coaching, and then running off the court in between points sometimes. Is that like an encouragement thing, or is that a strategy thing, or it could be both?
It's not an encouragement thing because I can do that from the sidelines. It's definitely a strategy thing, and it's probably something very simple, not too complicated. You don't want to tell your players or players something that's going to like get in their head. So it's got to be very simple. Maybe like, hey, return here, or hey, every time this person speeds up the ball, they're going there. So just like they're speeding up down the line. Watch your line. It's just little tidbits like that, and I think it helps a lot because just being able to like in real time, being able to tell somebody like something that's happening that they might not be able to see allows them to make an adjustment right away rather than having to wait until they're down 5-1 or 6-1 for 6-1 for a time or a changeover. So it just allows some real time coaching. So that's why I do it.
Did you catch any flack from referees on that?
So I did at one point because I asked before I stepped on there. I was like, I asked our GM. I was like, "Hey, am I allowed to step on the court?" And he's like, "Yeah, one person's allowed on the court." So one of the first matches, I think our second match, I run out to the court, tell him something, and then walk up the court, and the ref is like, "You're not allowed on the court." She's like, only one person is allowed past the line." And I look back, and Ryan, our GM, is probably like this much past the line. So I was like, so if he takes a step back, we're good. And she's like, so the next time I ran out onto the court, Ryan like took a half a step back, and then it was fine.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you had some other takes on the weekend as well, starting out with everybody's take of the orange court. Now, starting out from start to finish, has your opinion on that changed at all?
No, it's stayed the same the whole time. It was a mess. I saw the renderings of what it was supposed to be, and I didn't see this until the very last day. And the orange was supposed to be a much darker tone. It's supposed to be a much darker color tone, and that's why it was approved. That's what I believe. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind is like, hey, let's have the brightest color, one of the brightest colors possible on the court to like make this fun. So it's supposed to be a much darker orange, and if that was the case, it would be perfectly fine. It's just it's bright. It's a very bright shade, so it reflects back. It makes it hard to see the ball when your opponent's driving. I had a lot of trouble. I think every player had a lot of trouble with just getting the ball lost in the orange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd heard about that as well. I actually, maybe I don't have sensitive eyes or something. It didn't bother me, but I felt like it was slightly worse to watch too. And I feel like that's the main concern there.
Yeah, I watched all weekend, and like my eyeballs are still recovering. Like it was very difficult, and also with that blue. I know this sounds crazy because I'm sure in real time it doesn't matter, but with that blue, like I couldn't track the ball while you guys are playing sometimes because on the screen, the ball and the court color were very close. So I did not enjoy that.
Gotcha. Well, all right. We are nixing the clown color courts for New York, the yellow, white, and red courts. We were gonna do it for our home event, but I guess not. So I actually shot you a text as well when I saw you tap a serve into the bottom of the net. So for context, basically there is a rule where if you're called for a warning on an illegal serve, the outcome of that serve doesn't matter. So you get called for an illegal serve, you miss the serve long, and they give you another serve, you tap the ball into the net. Did any part of you think like, hey, I get another serve. Lucky me. Or was it immediately like, all right, this is a dumb rule. I'm going to tap it into the net?
So, my immediate thought is, you got to play the cards you're dealt. Sometimes you're dealt better cards than others. So I was like, hey, that's a redo. It's 8-all right now. We need this game. If we lose this, we could end up going to a dream breaker. Every point counts. So I was like, this is great. This is great. And then, that's just my initial thought. And then, I sit down, like I hear people complaining, and then I'm like, Christian, I try to do this as much as I can. I don't always do it. I'm like, if the roles were reversed, like, how would you feel? What would you want to do? And I'm like, this is a stupid rule, just bluntly. I was like, but, take advantage of it while it's there, was one thought. And then I was like, winning is important, but like, I don't want to win that way. I just, I didn't know anybody was going to like post it after, which was cool, but I really didn't. I would have been livid if the roles were reversed. Just so for that reason, Etta came to me after the match, and she was like, "I didn't know you were going to do that," and I was like, "I didn't either." So I don't think I decided to do that until I was like walking back to the line, and it felt good. It felt good.
Yeah. Damn.
Speaking of dumb rules, could we? I want to get to another dumb rule, if you don't mind. Yeah. I need to be specific here. You're right. Let me set the stage for the folks at home. You call a ball. You're playing with Eric. You call a ball out. You very clearly see it out. Eric called it in with a flat hand, and then a bunch of nonsense continues to happen for at least 15 minutes, all to result in the fact that MLP, you cannot challenge your own in ruling, and at PPA, you can. I have no idea why that's the case, because to me, my opinion is like, okay, we just want to get the call right, and we want to do it as efficiently as possible. So if there's an issue, why not just be able to challenge it and then go from there? So what are your thoughts on that whole conundrum?
I mean, I don't need to say any more than you did. You just explained it perfectly. Like, I will comment, though. I think you need to have the same on both the MLP and the PPA for something like this. I like being able to challenge an in ruling because it means that players aren't just calling close balls out regardless. Because if it's close, you just call it out, and then if you're wrong, whatever, you lose a challenge.
Yeah, they always throw in there that you'll lose the challenge, whatever. We've only had one instance, in my understanding, in the entirety of MLP where somebody's actually been point penalized for going through all of their free challenges and then having another wrong call. So it's a non-problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like you said, what we really want to do is just figure out the right call. And I was trying to plead my case. Like, Eric is in front of me on the left side. He throws up a lob to Max Freeman. Max Freeman hits it 100 miles per hour, right past the line, super close. Eric has to turn like completely behind him, and all I have to do is really turn my head a little bit, so I have a much better view than he does. He puts his hand flat. He told me he was like just asking me whether it was in or out. He wasn't really sure. He's like, it was more like a question. And I called it out the second it landed. I did not hesitate at all. I didn't let's just call it out and see what happens. And then the ref is like, since he did this motion, the ball's in. That's it. And I'm like, what? Like, give us we're a team. I get if let's just say I call a ball out and then my partner's like, hey, no, that's in. I get where that should be the in ruling takes precedent over the out ruling, but just the way it worked out, I was not super happy with that. So I was like, this isn't right. I'm going to fight for what I believe is right. Let's get the head ref. Let's get the head tournament ref. The head ref on the court was like, that's going to result in 1 point loss for your for this game. I was like, let's do it. Hindsight, maybe if I was a little bit more settled, I wouldn't have done that. But I was very just, this is wrong. What's right should prevail. Courtney, head ref, came out in the court and was like, I pled my case. I thought I did it very well. She's like, you're not going to like what I have to say. So we lost. So instead of it being 1-4-1, it's now 6-1-2. and like that's the match Eric and I lost this week, and I just James and Max, they played very solid. I was upset about that whole scenario.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's ridiculous, and I think it incentivizes cheating if you can't challenge your own call. You should always call it out if that's the case. Like, it is without a doubt incentivizing cheating. Now, what I can see from their perspective is, because I like to abuse rules and I read the rule book, what I could see happening and what they're probably trying to avoid is challenging your own calls in lieu of a timeout, right? All the teams are doing it. You make a challenge if you need an extra timeout, whatever. You could call a ball out that's 5 feet out, but you need a timeout. You challenge it, you get some extra time. Now, a solution here, I think, is if you challenge your own call, you still lose your challenge, whether you're right or whether you're wrong, which could dissuade people from – it would allow people to challenge their own calls and not come out like looking like a cheater for just calling it out. And it would also prevent them from doing it whenever they needed a timeout, right?
Can I get some clarification on that? So let's just say, well, in that case, I'm going to, well, if I call the ball out, they challenge and it's overruled, I lose a timeout and they lose a timeout. So for that reason, I'm more incentivized.
They don't in MLP. They don't. You would just lose a free challenge.
I would just lose a free challenge. But you
Correct.
said if you use a challenge, you regardless whether you win or lose, you're going to lose that challenge, right? Or am I wrong?
In this is what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Like, if you challenge your opponent's call and you are correct, you do not lose a challenge. You have 3 free challenges. Let's say you call a ball out and you challenge your own call. I think they should allow you to challenge your own call. And even if you are still correct, you still lose the challenge. So you gain the ability to challenge your own call. You don't gain the ability to game the system.
Okay, so only when you're challenging your own call will you lose it regardless. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I can see
that.
for them to not implement challenging your own call.
Are you wearing the girlies sweater right now?
It's very comfortable.
Okay, that's awesome.
It's
You're
very
such
comfortable.
a troll.
That's funny.
All right. So other crazy rules we had. Serve height rule. I know just minutes before you came on the pod, you put out a post outlining the serve height. Do you think that this is a currently good rule, or what's your perspective on it?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's too high. I think if it's way too high. We know that. We figured that out in the PPA over the last several years. We figured out that that's too high and that we want it to be around the hip. Like I don't. We spent all this time with one of the main pickleball tours to figure this out, and then for MLP to just change it, it doesn't make sense. Just to put it simply, it just doesn't make sense. So what I thought was, I was like, all right, let's take advantage of that. Like, I'll win I'll win easily with that serve against a lot of teams. So what's funny is I didn't really figure it out until a couple of days before, and I didn't start
because it wasn't out. It wasn't out until like the Monday of the event, and
exactly. So I honestly wasn't really sure if I read it correctly or somebody told me. I wasn't sure if it was true. And then the day of the first match, like, I personally read it. I was like, okay, this is what it is. So just a few hours before I played my first match, I started practicing the shoulder high serve. And I was like, all right, like, I didn't have much practice. And it worked well. And my Onsens and I played Dekel Bar and Riley Newman, a good team for this MLP, and I think I got like 4 or 5 missed returns, and then I got every other return was short, and I missed 1 serve. So that's huge. And then mixed doubles, we lost 11-1, but I only served once the entire match. I only served twice technically, and I won the first point because I got a missed return using my serve. And then the second point, they barely get the return back, and they scrape the point out. I think it's a little too high.
Yeah. Do you then think? Do you think that drop serves are inevitable in professional pickleball?
So I saw your tweet, and then we also saw Fed's comment.
We did.
So a drop serve could be great until you got to do it on a pickle roll, and it comes up an inch. So I guess that's if we keep playing on some rollout courts, we'll have to figure that out. But I could get behind drop serves, but what are we talking? Do you have a certain height you have to drop it by? Can I throw it down? Can I literally throw it down? Or is it no force acceptable? It's just a plain drop. Can I toss it up? I guess it's not too hard to figure out. Just, hey, you got to drop it from shoulder height or below. I think that would change the game to the serve being 0% a weapon. Nearly, because the ball doesn't bounce up that high. You're hitting very low. I'm sure I would find a way, like myself, Kwong, some other players would find a way to make it a weapon. I don't think we're ever going to do a drop serve in pro pickleball, but worth.
Yeah, I just I'm texting you a video that I took from last year of the drop serve actually. I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter or anything. You can release it from as high as you can reach, but your hand has to be stationary at the point of release. It can't be going up, can't be going down. So that's mainly the only actual rule surrounding the drop serve. But what it does is it actually would allow you to step in, take a couple of steps, and rip the ball. I think that while we are hitting from lower positions, I think that you could actually theoretically hit about as hard. So I just texted you one if you want to take a look at it. And to me, it just seems like we're constantly changing these serve rules around. It seems to me like the only thing that we could actually enforce. Now, I think if you took this, make a video of yourself doing a drop serve, Christian. I promise you can make it look good.
So that was my only. That's you hit it pretty hard. The bounce came up to it came up to about your hips, just below. My only thing is you look a little funny holding the ball like this right before you serve it. I don't know if people watching pickleball, seeing every point, people doing that, if that's gonna just be a bad look for pickleball. That would be my my hesitation. But I'll try it. I'll try it. Yeah.
Give it a whirl. All right, so we got a couple other questions. You won 3 out of the 4 matches with Eric. Chemistry didn't seem to be an issue. Big question coming into the weekend when he went like this and you went like this, and they said that you called the ball in. Did you think of going like this to Eric at all again? Or
I was about to be like, "Hey man, you're number 1 for that call." No. No. I mean, Eric, I think we see this a lot where players in the moment get very emotional. They don't think as much as if they were just relaxed. So I think people get very emotional when they're playing. Eric and I had hung out before we played those matches together. We went golfing together. Love to golf. He's really good at golf. He's better than me, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the chemistry was solid. We were able to hang out as a team several days before and train together and just hang out, dinners, and I think the team chemistry of the Ranchers is in a really good spot.
Sweet.
Any other takeaways from this MLP event, just in general thoughts, Christian?
Yeah, let's see, because Zane asked me if I had any spicy takes from the weekend,
okay,
and I was like,
okay, we're here for it.
I got a couple that I was a part of. The orange court, yep, serving fault. I think those are most of them. I think GS could have been a lot better because center court was cool. The seating was awesome, but GS was there's a pickleball court, and then there's a tennis court 3 steps away from it, and then there's no seating. There's very little seating for the players. I'm not sure if you played on GS at all. No, yeah, it's just
they don't send Zane down to grandstand. Get out of here!
Right,
Get out of
right.
here!
That's all you need. So I thought they could have put that where center court was last year, but I think USDA with collegiate players playing NCAA's didn't want that. So I think there was just kind of bad timing with the venue, and I'm not involved in that at all, but could always be better. But I think overall I was pleased with. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was solid. After so last year when we played MLP at the start, the first few events, we're like, all right, well, they won these matches, they lost these matches, like who cares? Like whatever. Like we're not gonna know what this means until the very end. But this event, since we had the Flash win last year, since like now we kind of know what it's for. Like we had the finals, and now it felt like this event was a little bit more important than the first events of last year. So I think that's a plus for MLP.
For sure. All right, we got a couple of rapid fire questions, couple one word answers for you. All right.
Okay.
Is MLP back? Yes or no?
Yes.
Who wins in a cage fight? 100 men versus one gorilla.
The gorilla, a determined gorilla.
Determined gorilla. Who wins in a cage fight between Leigh Waters and Hayden Patriquin?
I had this conversation already. I think pound for pound, Lee's got him.
Okay. All right. And you've played the blind ranking game with us before, right?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to have you blind rank the worst courts we've played on in pickleball. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So blind rank these 5 courts. We have the Fountain Blue in Las Vegas from last year.
That's the worst one. This is the worst court I've ever played on.
Christian's going to want to recount.
Yeah. All right. We've got Orlando MLP this year.
So is 5 the worst or is 1 the worst?
5 is, we'll go 5 is the worst. 1 is the best.
5 is the worst. So I'd say MLP Orlando. I mean, if we're comparing it to roll out courts, it's going to be the best. So I'll put it as 2 just to be safe.
Well played.
Smart. We have your local YMCA gym floor.
Oh, like a basketball court.
Yep.
Man, those balls are slick. I've played there. Funny enough, I think the second time I ever played pickleball was at UVA. I barely knew what the sport was, and I played on a gym court with like some of my teammates. I'd say that's a little bit better than or a little bit worse than. I'll put that at 3.
3. Okay. Gotcha. Next up, we've got the Bristol, Tennessee courts from last year.
What was wrong with Bristol? Nothing.
Bristol was the one where they didn't put the second layer of paint on in time, so they were crazy slick.
Yeah. Well, I won that tournament, so I'll put that at number 1.
That's so good.
That's a very fair answer.
Yeah.
Which means that your number 4 is going to. Well, actually, I'll put it this way: do you want to reorder anything?
I'm gonna change the basketball court to the second worst, like the gym floor.
Okay,
so
you have that at number 4. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got temp net on a tennis court as your number 3, which I
Perfect.
feel like is a pretty good list. We've got Bristol, MLP Orlando, temp net on a tennis court, basketball, and then Fountain Blue.
I wouldn't do it any other way.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love that Christian won at Bristol, and he's like, "What was wrong with Bristol? Like, it was great."
I didn't have any problems. Yeah.
Those courts were lightning fast.
That's why Kwong and I did so well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, hey, dude, thanks for coming on, sharing the spicy takes. Appreciate it. And you guys are off for Columbus this week, but on for Austin.
Yes. We're hosting.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Appreciate you coming on, Christian.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. So, Eric, you are basically the account to follow on Twitter these days. You have a bunch of stats insights as well as a pretty immaculate spreadsheet, if I do say so myself, as somebody whose background is in spreadsheets. Like, take us through some of the insights, the numbers. What do they mean?
Yeah. So last year, as I'm writing about MLP, it became very clear to me that the stats that MLP has just aren't great for storylines. You only get like points won and games won, and it's pretty difficult to like get storylines like how well did Leigh and Will do. I don't know based on the MLP stats, right? So I started keeping my own stats just because I wanted to be able to tell those storylines a little bit. And then what happened this year was I spent 5 or 6 hours last weekend getting my 2025 spreadsheet ready with all the new data and all the new players. And so I was ready for this weekend. And halfway through the event, it just seems like MLP stopped keeping track of player stats. Like there's missing stuff, there's wrong stuff. So I think at that point I was like, okay, I feel like everybody should have access to the stats. So I made a publicly available Google sheet just so everybody could have it. Couple big takeaways in terms of stats. First of all, Georgia Johnson just like annihilated the competition. It doesn't hurt that Tyra and JW were also ranked second and third. So it goes Georgia, Tyra, JW in terms of like player rankings, if you will. But Georgia didn't lose. She went 8 for 8. And she just she I keep this, actually I'm interested in your take on this. I keep a stat, I call it like blowout wins or blowout losses, and I consider that like 11-2 or better. Georgia won 6 out of her 8 games 11-2 or better. Like that's a beatdown.
Damn.
What do you think about the blowout game? Like, is that a good number for side out scoring?
I mean, I think so. I'd probably put it at like 2.5 because I think that, I think that 0, 1, or 2 are blowouts. 3, you could actually theoretically have some decent enough matches that are 11-3, but with a lot of side outs. But yeah, she was pretty clearly the MVP of this weekend, and it's some of the matches were just against some of the have-not teams, like candidly,
right.
But other ones, like what would you say their best win was?
Didn't they beat Columbus? I think they beat Columbus pretty handedly.
Yes, they had an 11-1 over Paris and Leia. The Hustlers 11-0 versus the Hustlers, as they probably should do. Let's see. They played the Carolina Hogs 11-1 in that one. Again, not a great women's team on the Hogs. And then Chicago Slice 11-6 over Vivian and Callie, which is a solid team, but two of their matches were against probably league bottom women's teams. Not to discredit anything, she obviously played great all weekend, but I mean, I think that's what we're gonna see. It's like, some of these matches are just going to be blowouts, unfortunately. And now I think you mentioned that there are basically like 4 to 5 tiers of different teams. What did you mean by that?
I think so. If we were to tier teams, there's like 2 or 3. It's the Flash and the Shock up top for sure. I would also argue that you guys are in there.
Thank you.
But you did take a loss, but there's an elite tier, a good tier, fighting for playoff tier, and then there's the like you have no hope of winning more than 4 matches this year tier. And
it's pretty clear what those are, right? Like,
right. It's not that hard.
I feel like there's gonna be very few losses between tiers, right? I think that it'll be difficult for the championship tier to always beat the second tier. I don't think that'll happen, but like I can't see too many wins outside of tiers, to be frank.
Yeah, I think there will be some in terms of like top tier and second tier. A little, every once in a while we get an underdog win. And then every once in a while from that third tier to the second tier, for sure, we'll get something there. But that fourth tier is probably not going to win much at all. And I think if let's say a top tier is playing the third or fourth tier, that's going to be extremely, extremely rare that we get one of those. It's just too lopsided.
Right.
So one thing I wanted to get your take on is we have this, obviously we're not going to have equal schedules the whole time. And some teams, in my opinion, kind of get, I don't know if the term screwed is correct. Shafted. There we go. But like, for example, Carolina and New York only got 2 matches. And so if you get run up against 2 really good teams, you might play really well and still lose both matches. So, I don't know if I love that at the first event we had every team in Premier, but I wonder if there's a way to better balance the schedule a little bit so that, one team isn't playing 6 matches and another is playing 2. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it feels it's just super strange to have such a disparity to me, and not making any excuses whatsoever. It is very difficult to play both back-to-backs. Those are very tough. And then I think it's a decent advantage to be playing, you're a second match versus a team's 6th. Might not change any outcomes, whatever, but it does feel like teams should be within 1 match of one another. Feels kind of reasonable. So I thought that was strange. You got every team there. Why not have everybody play like 4 times, once per day or something like that? But I think there's other considerations like TV, whatever,
right?
Stuff that we might not know. Maybe there's, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe there's some rhyme or reason to it.
I do think one other thing on the scheduling part is, I think there were 6 teams that did have to go back to back, and in Columbus this weekend, there's also scheduled back to back. Like there's a bunch of teams doing that.
If there were 6 teams that went back to back, do you know what their records were?
I know you and the Mad Drops lost. So there's that right away. I don't have all. Oh, great. Okay, sounds good. That document. Okay. Will do.
So, other news, we've got Rachel and Catherine teaming up. I'm wearing my girlies because maybe that's the new girlies. They're kind of posting as if that's the new girlies. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it makes the most sense. I don't know if that was just for one event or if that's for like the rest of the season, but here's the deal. We're in the middle, we just had 11 PPA events. Everybody is already partnered up for the most part. It's going to be, even with the 3+ weeks notice, maybe even a month, it's going to be really difficult to get a new partner. So it makes the most sense for them. Plus they're both Selkirk sponsored players. So Selkirk can make a nice little graphic about that. What do you think? You think they'll play straight up?
I have no idea how they're going to play. I just know that they're going to be on the same side of the draw as Anna Leigh and Anna Bright, or there's going to be some way or another they're going to get those guys to play each other, just like they're going to be able to get Hayden and Anna Leigh on the same side of the mixed draw. But I think I saw from Maddie Pickles that Rachel and Anna are actually supposed to be the number 1. I'm sorry, Rachel and Catherine are supposed to be the number 1 seed for Atlanta. They have more cumulative points than Anna Leigh and Anna Bright, which I thought was surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. And an interesting one on that, just for the folks at home who know that PPA does random seeding a little bit. The first and second seed are never moved, right? Like if you're the first seed, you're the first seed. If you're the second seed, you're the second seed. So although I do like your conspiracy theory, I don't think they will see each other unless they both make the finals. But I think everybody is going to be rooting for that to happen, so we could see that showdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So in some other news, we had Tina Pisnik and Dylan Frazier rocking some new paddles. We had Dylan with a Valair paddle. What was Tina playing with?
It's called Warping Tour, I believe. I've never heard of it. Have you heard of it?
No.
Yeah. So I don't know much about the company, but it's called Warping Tour.
Warping Tour.
Also, on the paddle front, we also saw Fed playing with an Adidas for the first time in a while. So we'll see if that continues in MLP and in PPA.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So this week we also have Andre Agassi and Annalie Waters teaming up at the U.S. Open, which will be interesting. And yeah, I'm
Question
sure
for you.
Yeah.
How far do you think they make it in the draw?
They win it 100%.
Okay, really?
100%.
I'm sure you don't have time to scroll social media, but there are so many people out there that are like, they're going to lose in the round of 16. It's going to be terrible. And I don't know. It sounds crazy to me. Like you're very high on them, but I've so many people are like, Andre's a 4-0. And I'm just like, I don't think that's true.
Okay, let's say that it is true. I think that the quality. I think Annalie is just head and shoulders above pretty much everybody else there. And I think Andre is going to be able to hide enough. Now he's going to see a lot of balls, that's for sure. But I think that they win for sure. I think their main opponent is going to be Jack Monroe and Megan Fudge, which I do think will be a difficult matchup with Jack in front of Andre, I'm assuming. I think if Annalie and Andre Agassi are listening to this podcast, they should put Andre on the right for that one in front of Megan Fudge, and Annalie can lock down Jack in front. Let's come up with some form of punishment. You heard it here. Leave us a comment what punishment I should do if I am wrong on Annalie and Andre Agassi, because I'm very confident that they're going to win this. But anyway, leave comments for that. Leave comments for more questions. We're going to do a much better job of getting to those, just like we are right now. T-Dog is going to read off a bunch of different questions that you guys had for us for this week.
All right, here we go. First one. As a pro player, what do you think MLP is doing right so far in the early 2025 season? And what do you think needs to be changed or updated ASAP in order to grow?
Oh, that's from Hayshay. She said this question is for Zane, by the way, not Tommy with a heart. I appreciate that. I think, like what we talked about with Ryan, there's plenty of little details and whatnot that we have to work through. Serve rules, challenge rules, whatever. The biggest improvement that MLP made is trusting their local operators, letting the squeeze cook. So that's the biggest takeaway, and that's why I think we had MLP back with a top 3 MLP event.
When will drop serve become the only legal option? 1 year, 6 months, or 3 years are the only options given?
I'd say most likely of those 1 year. I think USAP will change to drop serve only first. And then the pro game, I think, will probably be longer than 1 year, but it is inevitable. It's the only way that I can think of, other than just letting us serve overhand, to have a completely enforceable serve rule.
Agreed. Okay, next one. In my opinion, too much downtime at MLP between timeouts, challenges, changing of sides, and more than 5 minutes between matches. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, somebody's got to watch the ads to pay us. So, yeah, I think it's you're not wrong, but I think it is another spot to sell sponsorships. It's probably too much at this point, and probably trying to make up for the fact that we're playing less pickleball with 1 game to 11.
Also, I really wish to the Hayden thing with Anna Leigh. I don't love the going back and forth every 6 points between on the benches. I'd like to see us figure that out. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that would be a place where we don't. You're wasting a lot of time. Sure, you could still get commercials in there, without moving the entire bench.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if they
Yeah.
did that in the NBA in between quarters or something. Like they would never do that.
Yeah, that'd be wild. Yeah, that seems strange to me.
Another question for you. Is MLP too top heavy?
Yeah, 100%. I think we need league minimum spends like you have in the NBA. You have to spend at least 90% of the salary cap in the NBA. I think we have to have that, some form of that in Major League Pickleball to make sure that every team is competitive.
Okay, and last question for you. This is a good one. What would you have done after you full sent it at Gabe and he did the same thing to Megan?
Well, luckily he didn't. Gabe understood what I was doing there, right? Hayden calls my partner the B word, and so I'm gonna peg somebody. It's not gonna be Anna Bright on the other team. Like Hayden or Gabe was just the guy that got pegged, like just like in baseball. So like I talked to him afterwards. He got it. I'm just sticking up for my teammate. So don't think he would have done that. I think he understood that it was probably just right to end that. And I also just think that it's not something that's been done, guys to women in pro pickleball, and I think that's generally a good thing. Since we're talking hypotheticals, I full send it to Gabe. If he full sends it at Megan like that, I'm probably actually going to go get a targeting fine. Next one's going to be at the face.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought the way that was handled was exactly like it is in baseball. Like, okay, you hit my guy, I hit your guy. We're done now. Everybody is copacetic, and we continue playing the match like normal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I kudos to Gabe for not escalating on that. Like, I get it. You get pissed when you get hit, whatever. But like, I think that was proper to end it there.
Agreed.
Guys, thanks for asking the questions. We're gonna do better of reading the YouTube questions and as well as anything we throw out there on Twitter as well. Appreciate anybody who sent those questions as well. Stay tuned for next one. You look beautiful, Willie.
Thank you.
Will, welcome back to the pod, bro. How was your weekend?
It was good. How was yours?
It was solid. It was solid. It was eventful. So we're going to talk about. We've talked about a bunch of other stuff on the pod. We kept the listeners waiting until the very end to talk about Hayden and Anna Leigh. We have two eyewitnesses to the entire deal. Biased, of course, in favor of our teammate, but video evidence supports pretty much everything out there. But we're going to kind of chat about it.
All right.
So starting off, dude, you're like great buddies with Hayden. You guys used to be roommates, right?
Yeah. No, we're good friends.
You're good friends. Like, did you feel like this was going to be like what you're good friends? So do you feel like there's extra tension, extra beef, or just extra competitiveness when you guys get on the court together?
Honestly, playing against Hayden, I felt like I was like the calmest I was all weekend against him. So
yeah, interesting. So down 0-2, we're down 0-2 against the Shock. You guys go out against Kate and Hayden, and it's a bag fest. Like, you tagged Hayden. Tice, what are the stats on that?
I think I counted 5 body bags. Is that right, Will?
I think that is right. Yeah. It was a good match for me.
the good stats. We had Ben on from Real Clear Stats too, so we'll have to start tracking that. But like, I'm sitting on the sidelines. It really wasn't a chippy match at all. Like, was it?
Really, no. Every time I hit him, I was pretty sincerely apologetic. Like I really didn't mean to. It's just kind of how the points played out.
Yeah, for sure. None of them were like my bag on Gabe. None of them were anything crazy. It was just losing a hand battle and whatever, getting hit. So there weren't even necessarily any egregious ones, which is why I feel like everybody was so thrown off guard when the match ends pretty much without incident. You guys tap paddles, and then we're kind of all finished tapping paddles. It wasn't right up at the net. It wasn't like tap paddles, hey, you're a bitch. It was tap paddles, walk away, you're a fucking bitch. Like the commenters, there are a few random people on Facebook saying that was directed at you. What was your experience after that match?
So we tap paddles, and Hayden thought AL was laughing at him because of the bags, and there was one on match point as well. And and then he came up to me. He said, "Why is she fucking laughing at me?" And then I'm not sure if AL responded to that or not. I didn't respond to it. I don't know if you saw, but I just kind of kept walking to the bench. I actually didn't even see the whole interaction because my back was turned, and I walked just like straight down to the end of the bench. But maybe AL had said something there that got him really frustrated, and then he made the comment towards her. And yeah, then it all went down. What'd you see?
I ran out there to start warming up for my match. So
You weren't really looking
I
either.
wasn't really looking.
You were like warming up already, right?
Megan and I kind of got out there right away. Or maybe I didn't even realize anything was happening. I didn't hear any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of it.
Will, there's I think it was a Facebook comment. Some guy was basically saying like Hayden was saying it to you, but I don't think that's the case.
Because Hayden and I were friendly. Like I actually apologized after the match because I didn't mean to hit him. Like it just kind of how the points played out, and then he just expressed his frustration to me about her facial expressions.
Gotcha.
And,
We'll have to
I
review the
think
tape on that.
yeah, I think it just escalated from there.
Yeah, for sure. So after that, AL chases him down and gets over in the bench. Like obviously, no, everybody's saying Hayden shouldn't call AL a bitch. Like I think that's unanimous, pretty much. Everybody's also saying Annalise shouldn't be running up on the bench. So what's your take on the follow up to this?
I can really appreciate that Annalise stands up for herself in that situation because I don't think a lot of people would, or even a lot of like women against a guy there in that situation would. So it's pretty impressive that she did, and she was able to do that. But I don't think that that was necessarily like the right reaction. Obviously, going towards an opposing team's bench, regardless of any sport, is that's like grounds for fistfight territory right away. And that's just a tough situation. You don't see the mix of male female athletes together often, so it adds for an interesting dynamic with something like this.
Definitely. Yeah, it's is there anything throughout this entire thing that you would have done differently? Like obviously it's tough in the moment to have a cool head and think through all of the possibilities, but like anything that Will Howells does differently knowing this happens
Me
in like
personally,
hindsight. Yeah.
I mean, if so, I wasn't turned around, but if I was turned around, I probably would have run up and tried to like de-escalate the situation. I'm sure you would have too, because you didn't really see it all happening.
Right. So I
You don't
caught
want
it.
Hayden saying that stuff, but you also don't want AL running up into the bench.
Right. So I caught it when AL starts going over towards the bench, or at least that's when I start processing it. And to me, it felt like at that point, if we go over there, that is an escalation. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna like throw a fist at AL because their career's over if they do that. I think
That's
legitimately.
true. Yeah, 100%.
I
Yeah,
think
for
if
sure.
we
Absolutely.
go over there and escalate for better or for worse, or not even necessarily that we are escalating, but going over there, like, I don't think was smart either. But I don't know. We were catching flack too for not intervening on that. I don't know if that was.
Again, it's
I
just
don't know if that's right or that's wrong.
well, my back was turned, but it's also just it's a weird situation because you have male female athletes on the same team and on opposing teams. It makes it for a more unique dynamic there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question for both of you. If let's just pretend for a hypothetical, if that same thing is said, but it's obviously directed at you, Will, at the same time, is this like even a story?
Like if he said it to me instead of AL.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have really cared. I was kind of just brushing it off at that
Right.
point. And I know that with H, if that kind of banter goes back and forth between us, it's not super meaningful. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just boys shooting the shit, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's a distinct thing. You kind of hit on it in pickleball, right? Like, there's many guys that do a lot of chirping, and when they do the chirping, it's always directed at other guys. It's very rarely directed at the woman in mix.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of like, I would say, especially in pro, that that's a very distasteful way to go about things. And so I think this is like a
Usually
unique
is.
situation.
Even in mixed doubles. Yeah, in mixed doubles, it's just back and forth between the guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like, you don't see it very often. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to chirp the girl, but there's also a difference between chirping and like a personal attack.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
like, calling somebody, a guy calling a guy a bitch, I feel like is chirping. Like you see that all the time in the NBA. Women's sports, right? They probably call each other bitches all the time. It is, for better or for worse, it is very different when a guy calls it to a woman, and that's where I felt like that crossed the line. You can say, your dink is broken, your hands are slow, whatever it is. But like, especially that word as a derogatory term for woman historically, like, a guy can't call a woman a bitch and expect to not have hell break loose.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was definitely more of a personal attack at that point.
Yeah, 100%. So your commissioner, Samin, other than, bringing back rally scoring and making sure that we don't have orange courts again, what are you doing to remedy this situation? What should be the repercussions for Leigh and Hayden?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much. What are your ideas?
Slap on the wrist, let's play on.
Do you think?
I think that's
is this
most
suspension
likely what's going to happen.
I don't know. This is the kind of stuff that if it's caught on a mic, you're probably getting a fine in another sports league. Both of them
The
would probably
fines
get
don't
a
really
fine.
do much. And, there's also no precedent for crossing over benches. Like, players kind of do it all the time, like to go get their bag or something or another.
Yeah.
It's not like we have separate dugouts or separate benches.
Well, you
So
could
it's
have the
never been
benches
like a
on
problem
opposite
before.
sides. You could just put them
You
on
could.
opposite
Yeah,
sides.
exactly.
And that's a suggestion that I have seen. I don't think that's a bad idea either. Because then it would be more significant if you do cross over to the other side.
Right.
Yeah, even at the paddle tap, then you're paddle tapping and going separate ways super fast, right? Like it's
Yeah.
And then we don't have the problem. I mean, in a match, how many times do you guys switch benches? It's like, it feels like every 5 minutes, all of a sudden we're going from here to here to here to here. And it's like, why don't we just stay in one spot? Imagine the NBA is switching benches at the end of every quarter. It's kind of crazy.
Honestly, I don't think it would be a bad idea to have those like opposite benches, because then the fans could also distinguish which side they want to support a little better. Instead of like switching sides, like being on opposite sides, you could just be behind the bench of the team you want to support. Because otherwise you're switching sides and then your players, like the team you're supporting, is on the opposite side of where you're sitting. Might make for a better viewing experience too.
Yeah, but you get the players switching sides all the time, though, is the problem.
No, but I'm
You
saying
wouldn't always be behind the players.
opposite sides of the court. Like
Oh,
we're
okay,
on
so one's
Each
one full
sideline.
side,
I
they're on the
gotcha.
other full side, and then you build bleachers
Right.
at both backside, like both of the sides,
Yeah,
and
I
then you just
gotcha.
sit
Yeah, that makes
behind the
sense.
team. Yeah, I think that would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think on different sides of the court makes a tremendous amount of sense.
Yeah.
So moving on next, what did you think of both Hayden's on-court apology as well as MLP's statement afterwards?
I thought Hayden was a little dejected. I definitely think he felt bad. It felt a little ingenuine, but I also I think Hayden's a good guy and he means well. I think that deep down he probably, he meant it, but I think it could have been put together a little bit better as well. With regards to MLP's statement, I think it needs to be a little more professional and official. It seemed a little bit too playful for what happened. You know, we're all taking this very seriously, so.
Have you talked to Hayden since?
Yeah, I talked to him the night of. Yeah. No, we were fine right after.
Gotcha. So it sounds like he's not feeling particularly great about that. I'm surprised he hasn't, said anything a little bit more publicly, but maybe that'll come. So, what are the odds they face off in mixed in Atlanta? I feel like it's got to be like 100% chance.
That's got to be a round of
They will
16 match at the latest.
At the late, like it'll probably be round of 16. Most likely, they're going to be in the same quarter. Like they've got to be in the same quarter.
Yeah, for sure. When is that tournament? Is
Who do
that
you
in
think?
2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah. Who do
Okay.
you think wins in that cage fight? A cage fight between Hayden and Anna Leigh. Who wins it?
That's a good battle. I think it's a toss up.
50-50. Wow. Okay, I might have to throw that poll out there on Twitter.
That's a good one.
So
yes.
getting to
What about
more.
Anna Leigh versus 100 gorillas?
Did any of the gorillas call her a bitch? Because if so, I'm taking Anna Leigh. So getting to just one more topic for you. You are one of the only players that is, to my knowledge, that's able to play APP as well as MLP this year. You've got a special deal to come out and play with the fives, and then you are all PPA moving forward. Can you tell us a little bit about how that ended up happening, how you ended up being able to stay on the team, and what the next year or so looks like for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think MLP, PPA, and I we were trying to figure out what made the most sense for all of us, whether it was logistically or financially, and putting it all together. It just seemed like the best option was to let me play for the fives this year, and I still maintain a little bit of freedom in the other stuff that I play, and then look to be exclusive with the PPA and MLP next year, which I'm very excited for too.
So yeah, you've recently triple crowned at the APP Fort event, and you've got some people who love you, you got some people who hate you, and you've got some people who are trying to discredit wins on the APP. So my question is, how many APP wins are equivalent to a PPA win?
I don't know how to answer that. It's kind of a tough question. I don't know if you can like quantify it like that, like the amount of APP wins is equal to a PPA win. I would say it's more of like the dominance in your APP wins. How strong are those APP wins? How badly did you beat your opponents? I think regardless of where you are, a triple crown is a very, very difficult thing to do. I think there are few players, PPA players, that would be able to triple crown an APP. But I don't know if I can quantify like the amount of APP wins that would equate to a PPA win. I think they're just too different.
Yeah, I gotcha. That was not a very straightforward question, but yeah. So yeah, it is always fun to see the crossover, right? We had you, Jack Monroe, Megan Fudge, Jill Braverman last year, able to play MLP, and you obviously had a really good MLP season last year, off to a great start this year as well with the fives. It'll be exciting to see and get that week in and week out comparison between you and APP players, or you and the PPA players. Right now, we get to debate. Like I'm high on Will Howells. Some of the other commentators aren't, just because you don't have the week in week out play, and people seem to just discredit Major League Pickleball results for for whatever reason as small sample size. But it'll be fun to have you on the PPA tour full time next year.
Yeah, I'm excited to prove myself there as well. I understand that MLP results are discredited, but I'm looking forward to playing on the PPA as well. It'll be fun.
Yeah. T-Dog, you got anything else?
Nope, good to go.
Sweet. Well, Willie, anything else you got for us?
Nothing. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for breaking it down with us. We'll get you on again.
Sounds good. All right, guys.
All right, later, Willie.
Take care.
All right, guys, shifting gears. I found the two biggest nerds that I could. No, my buddies, we've got Ben from Real Clear Stats, and there's nothing wrong with being nerds. I'm a nerd, okay? We like the numbers, and we have a lot of questions around the Major League Pickleball change from rally scoring to our first event with traditional scoring. Ben is the guy behind Real Clear Stats, which provides actual data and statistics on the play at Major League Pickleball. So I polled my audience after the first event on Twitter. We said we preferred rally scoring for MLP at about 55 to 45. Ben, does that surprise you at all?
Not that much. Actually, I am a little bit surprised. That's if it was a presidential election, that would be like a mandate. But it's not. So,
all right. So you sent over a few different game lengths, because I feel like the main question coming into this was, is 1 game to 11 going to be enough pickleball? What have you found since statting every match so far in Orlando?
I'm really excited. Our scoring team got after it, and we finished just less than 2 days after the event concluded. So we have all the data, which is really cool. Some of the feedback we got from our teams last year was give it to us sooner, so we're fixing that. But yeah, it did feel. A lot of people commented that it felt like games were shorter. Definitely, we were expecting them to be shorter than rally to 25 last year. That was an average of 46.15 rallies per game.
Yeah, let's get to the graphics, because you created a graphic that basically shows the amount of points on average you can expect from a traditional scoring game to 15, 13, 11, or rally to 25, 21, or the first version of rally scoring that we had with the freeze at 20 to 18.
Here's the actual data from actual like seasons that we've had at MLP. So, when we were doing rally to scoring to 21 in a couple different formats, we were seeing around 39 and a half rallies a game. Then we went to rally scoring to 25 last year, and we saw 46.2 rallies per game. And to me, a lot of times it felt like the games dragged on a little bit. And it's still less than than 2 games to 11 or 3 games to 11 match. But your attention span, like that best of 3, kind of helps your attention span. I think 46 rallies is getting to be a bit much. But you also didn't feel like someone just randomly had a couple good rallies and won a game. So, there's something to be said for that. Although I'll try to stick to the data and not give the easily ignored opinions that we have.
Yeah, it did feel like last year 1 to 25 felt a little bit long. 1 to 21 felt solid from my perspective, having played that previously. 1 to 25, I feel like dragged a little bit.
Yeah, so traditional to 11, we saw 37.4 rallies per game. And I was a little surprised it was that low, because we had done, like almost 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we did some analysis after MLP Mesa, and we found traditional games to 11 would last around 41 rallies a game. But for that, we were trying to get like apples to apples, because there was a lot of parity in MLP at the time. So we were looking at like quarters, semis, and finals at PPA events. But we had also kind of a small sample size. We only had like 70 games or something like that. So already from MLP Orlando, we have a bigger sample size than that. And we're actually doing MLP, which is interesting. I think there's 2 factors this year, maybe that why we're seeing 37 rallies per game rather than 40 to 41 like we might have expected. I think there's less parity in MLP so far this season. The teams that are a little bit less skilled, I think they will close the gap as the season goes on, because they just haven't had reps against the high level talent. So I think that we'll see the length increase a little bit, maybe 38 and a half. But the other factor I really feel like is the factor with MLP that we didn't really take into account necessarily for our first analysis was often, especially in mixed, you have teams sending out a sacrificial lamb like their B team against the A team. I feel like that happens so often because teams are playing for the dream breaker or not, or they're playing for that guaranteed win. And so because that tends to happen, I think that's another reason we're going to see less parity in the actual matchups that occur per game. And that's part of why we think we're seeing, 37 and a half rallies, which is lower than kind of I was expecting.
Right. Yeah. Now, do you have any data comparing this to PPA recently, or is that what you were saying that was coming out at about an average of 39 points per game was the traditional 11 at PPA?
Traditional 11 at PPA a year and a half ago in the data set that we had, thanks to some data from Pickle Mart and some data that we had collected, we were seeing like 41 rallies per game. But the game's changing. The game's different now. Probably there's more parity at PPA at the quarters and semis, but
Right.
also those teams are so good. If we included earlier rounds, we might actually see a number like this. If we did an entire PPA event, we might actually see 36 rallies a game, something like that. The thing is, that's the thing with averages you're not really seeing. And I have another graphic at some point. We get to that later, but you're seeing the average, but the sensitivity to the disparity between the two teams as far as game length is huge for traditional scoring. You can have really short games. Already this weekend we had two games that were 17 rallies. That's just over in the blink of an eye. Does a team really have time to adjust or try to solve a problem that they're having? Maybe not.
Yeah, we had several different pickles. Now, what I'm curious to know is if we think there's going to be any perfect pickles this year winning 12 points in a row or 11 starting out on 0-0. That would be wild. But like you said, I felt like coming into this event, 1 game to 11 was going to be too short. And it felt like to me, it felt short on average, but it felt like the good matches were good, right? Maybe we want the blowout matches to be short. When the Dallas plays the Hustlers or something, do we need 2 hours of that? No, probably not. I don't even know if we need 2 minutes of that. But then when you had the good matches, right? 1 game to 11 could take you 25 minutes, especially with Will Howells.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to shout out the DC team for coming up with that one. That was pretty good. They started calling him Will Towels because of the towel break. But I had 2 other questions for you, Ben. So you mentioned to me, and this was not something that I had ever thought of. You mentioned that in both systems, whether it's traditional scoring or rally scoring, the game ends in a tie of rallies won while returning. The returning amount of points won is always going to be the same between the winning team and the losing team under both traditional scoring and rally scoring, which I had never really thought of before. Care to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think after searching for like the way to kind of explain it to people, what I was feeling like the data was saying, I finally realized that yes, because of the way the systems are set up, we're guaranteeing that um, rallies won while returning. You might call them side outs, but it's not always a side out in traditional. Are tied by the end of the game because the serving team, because that always pushes you closer to the serving team then, or the team that won that rally is now serving. So now they won't always be exactly tied, but it'll be a 1 point margin one way or the other. And then, of course, occasionally you can get an unscored rally with win on serve, but that's only like 0.7 points per game average. So it happens, it's like 1 point a game every other game or something like that.
So I hear among pro circles, right? Like, oh, rally scoring really favors teams that can return and defend against the serve, and it hurts teams that are good at scoring. Seems to be kind of a consensus behind the scenes. Are you then saying the data doesn't support that?
I say the data doesn't support that. What the data does support is, of course, there is a difference because rally, which is kind of what we like about rally scoring, that it kind of forces us to have a similar game length, right? Those rallies won while returning will force us into an end game situation. Whereas with traditional scoring, we go on forever and we never get to an end game situation because we've arbitrarily decided that unless you win 11 points on serve, you can't call yourself a winner, basically, is what we kind of decided. But so with rally, you can get less than that. But what we've seen is you're going to have 70, 80% of the time between 8 and 13 points won on serve in rally scoring with that format. So it doesn't really change how often the serving team wins. 42.7% of the time the serving team is winning the rally. And yeah, so I think it's a really helpful tool to think about that rallies won while returning are always tied, basically ignored by both systems. Both systems are valuing you've got to win on your serve if you want to win this game, and that's the essence of pickleball is winning when you have the disadvantage of serving.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who plays in, say, the Dink Minor League, and then you play in the PPA or whatever event, and you have to switch from traditional scoring to rally scoring, are there any strategy changes that you should make that the data supports?
So I'm not sure about strategy changes, but what I would say is this: in traditional scoring, there's like there can be this comfort level of we're down 7-0, but we just held them 3 times in a row. Like we figured out how to keep them from getting to the kitchen. We figured out how to hold them. Now we can take a breath, we can be calm, and we can take our time scoring points if we can keep holding them, right? You don't get that with rally scoring. Rally scoring is going to march you toward the end of the game. So that's why there's a different emotional experience of playing them, I think. And so some people are going to thrive, some people aren't. People that are really good at winning rallies when they're returning, those teams will have more time to problem solve when they're playing traditional, and they'll get the same amount of time as everyone else when they're playing rally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're commissioner, which of these scoring methods are you choosing?
I mean, I'm a big fan of rally scoring just because I've talked to so many people. I think when you ask the right questions, people that are new to the sport are often struggle with even people that love the sport. A lot of times I have a lot of partners I play with that I'm like, I just know I have to feed them the score because they're not going to know what it is and they're going to be asking what it is. And there's a lot of people that struggle with numbers and feel easily insecure, and they're going to be pushed away from the sport. I would love it to be more welcoming, more easy to understand on TV, clearer to see like the progress bar of the game going along. The only reason I want that is just because I love the sport. I just want to see it grow and thrive. And so because of that, I favor rally scoring, and I think the sooner you do it, the better. But I don't hate traditional scoring. So I think I would prefer rally scoring. I think to 21. 23 feels maybe like a sweet spot because if you want to show the projections that we shared, 23 kind of feels like a sweet spot of the number of rallies you get per game, maybe. But 21 is what we've done in the past. I don't think it's that bad to have just under 40 rallies a game on average. But if we're doing traditional, I do think you have to either live with 11, live with the short games, or you need to go up to 13, not 15.
Well, sweet. It'll be interesting to see. I think there were a lot of people who were in one camp or another. I'm gonna continue to ask my audience what they think after every Major League Pickleball event. At this point, it's 55% to 45% in favor of rally, but we'll see what that looks like at the end of the year. Now, we're not going to get into it here, but Ben just published a couple of breakdowns between the rivalry matches that we had this weekend, the split up of the girlies and the split up of Annalie and Catherine. So go check out that stuff on the Real Clear Stats Instagram. And anything else that you've got for us, Ben?
Yeah, 2 more quick things. One is that we will be at MLP Austin coming up in less than a month. So come out to that if you want to talk to us. We'll be doing like office hours with some pros if they want to learn about their own data that they have, and some cool stuff for fans. Hopefully, you can use promo code TX Ranchers if you want to get 15% off your tickets. And yeah, we'll have follow us at Real Clear Stats, and we'll have some data coming out from MLP Orlando soon and some of the other tournaments. Yeah.
Perfect. If you like data, follow Real Clear Stats. If you hate data, let's see, who could you follow? Who's somebody? If you hate data, follow Tyler Loong. All right. Well, Ben, appreciate you coming on and telling us about the main switch. It was a big topic of conversation heading into MLP. And so we'll continue to sort of monitor how this ends up playing out. But appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, darling, had fun, yeah.